episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
He was getting a haircut, a fade to be exact, when they took him down. 28-year-old Andrew James McGann, a former fifth grade teacher who had bounced around from school to school, arrested again while getting his haircut inside a Springdale, Arkansas barbershop. Just a short time later, when they got this guy back to the interview room, they got a confession out of him about the murder of this young couple in Arkansas that happened in front of their daughters during a family hike at a place called Devil's Den State Park. So, welcome to Surviving the Survivor, everybody. This is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime on trending criminal stories, and it seems like just about everybody is talking about this. We start the show in the Ozarks, a place that has quite the reputation, not just from the TV show, but you'll recall that sheriff recently, the police chief who escaped from prison. That happened in the Ozarks as well. But this particular crime, one of the most senseless and savage crimes in the Ozarks in recent memory, a young couple, Clinton and Cristen Brink, stabbed to death in broad daylight while hiking with their two little girls who were just ages 7 and 9, again, through Devil's Den State Park. It's a remote stretch of forest tucked into northwest Arkansas. And now the man accused of this horrific double murder, a guy named, again, Andrew James McGann. He is a school teacher who had just moved to Arkansas. He has not only been arrested, but apparently has confessed to the crime. And according to Arkansas State Police, his DNA is a match to evidence found at the scene. So it looks like it is going to be a long life for James Andrew McGann. But of course, he took the lives of these two young girls' parents. So a hideous crime with a hideous outcome, no matter which way you slice it. Best guest tonight, you know him well, three-time Las Vegas Officer of the Year, former Las Vegas homicide detective, retired Detective Phil Ramos. Also, he was part of the undercover narcotics unit, infiltrating the Cuban mob at one point. He has done it all. And next up, an active detective still, Dr. Detective Troy Looney, who has a show on the second channel, STS Talk. Dr. Detective Troy Looney holds a PhD and is a detective, probably the only detective you're going to end up calling doctor, at least that I know of. And shortly expected to join. She was on the show. It's got to be at least a year or so, but Nina Hobson, a former UK homicide detective who also specializes in sex crimes and sex trafficking. And I see Nina there. I hope she's set up. I'm going to bring her in. Nina, how are you?
Hello. I'm so sorry I'm late.
No worries at all. No worries at all. Just introducing Nina. So Nina is a veritable badass. That's all you need to know. Former UK homicide detective, and occasionally will protect famous people. How about that? So she bodyguards, and you don't want to mess with her. Everybody, welcome to the show. Different time just tonight. COE's yelling at me, but I wanted to get done a little earlier today. And if you're not on the traditional 7 p.m. Eastern, that is the typical time. We will be going back to that time forever and more. But today, yours truly wanted to wind up a little bit early so I could hang out with the kiddos once I'm done. Phil Ramos, let me start with you. They made an arrest on this guy, and I think the COE is going to be able to pull up some sound from there was a press conference yesterday and a press conference today. It appears that this couple is literally just hiking through Devil's Den with their two young daughters when suddenly they are attacked in one form or another. I'm not exactly sure. We don't know all the details of how this went down. They get, cracking on the police work and are able to arrest him just a few days later, mid haircut. The couple is Clinton and Cristen Brink, who had just moved, I believe, from the West Coast, Western states. There they are. And again, they're just in the middle of this hike with their two young children. She's a nurse. He is a dairy driver working for a dairy farm delivering milk, about as all-American a job as you can have. I guess the question, Phil Ramos, is horrific crime. This is now the accused, but and this guy looks like he's not a very nice, amiable kind of fella. But where do you start with this? You get a report, the couple, broad daylight, 2 kids, the couple stabbed to death. Where do you start?
Yeah, well, you start by scratching your head, wondering what the heck is going on here and why did it happen? And you start looking around at the crime scene, see what evidence is there. Of course, you're going to want to get a person who's very skilled at interviewing young children and get as much information as you can out of them. You don't want to handle that yourself. There's a forensically trained investigators that specialize in the interview of children in traumatic situations. So I don't know how isolated this park is or the ways to get in and out, if they're monitored with any kind of cameras or the roadways or anything like that. So you have to look at what you've got to work with and just start working it and go backwards like we always do. You go backwards from the crime and see what you can find out. You start maybe go into the house of the victims and see if there's anything that you can glean from that. And short of that, you just start knocking on every door and every car around there and hope, keep your fingers crossed that someone's going to see or have said something.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm being prejudicial here, but this guy, there's something in his eyes that is certainly off. He's now confessed to this crime. Nina Hobson, to you again. Nina was an active homicide detective and is heavily involved in working sex trafficking crimes. How do you, a crime like this where the parents are literally stabbed and murdered in front of their young girls, and apparently the mother came back to help the husband, from what I understand. A lot of the details are not known, but in a case like this, when you're working it, how do you not take something like this very personally, Nina Hobson?
I mean, you do, but we're professional too. So even while you're talking about the fact that they've been murdered in front of their children, we as police officers have to remain that's our job, to find out what happened. And as we've already said, so I was one of the trained interviewers of children, and they are our key at this point. And as sad as that is, they are the witnesses to this horrendous crime. And yeah, I've got goosebumps, and I know that every single person on this call feels exactly the same about this. But as a professional, it's our job to find out what happened, and that's what we do. And sometimes I wonder how we do it, but that's the thing that we do as police officers. It doesn't make us less human. We still feel exactly the same as you do about this crime, but it's our job to find out what happened and prove it.
Yeah, and it is a frightening thought to think this person is a teacher, 28 years old, and apparently was going to start teaching in Arkansas. We'll go through a little bit of his history. A lot of it is just being uncovered from cyber sleuths, to be honest, and police keeping things under fairly tight wraps as expected. But Dr. Detective, to you, it's great to have Nina back. We haven't had her on the show in a while, but hopefully we'll get her on more frequently. Dr. Detective, who has a show on the second channel, to you, same question as to Phil Ramos. You get this call, you go out to this remote part of the Arkansas woods in the Ozarks, you see a couple murdered, which is a sight, sadly, that you guys see often. The kids are eyewitnesses, and whoever did it is gone on a Saturday. The arrest, I believe, was made yesterday. So what, in terms of working backwards, what are some of the first things that you've got to do on scene?
So again, just like Phil and Nina mentioned, securing the scene, obviously, looking at the scope of the scene, expanding that scope, working with multiple agencies, multiple officers, detectives, and so forth. And of course, the kids, securing that, having the proper certified interviewers approach the details of what they observed, again, with a very sensitive approach. while that's taking place, other detectives such as myself and as Phil would do, again, we're looking for trail cams. We're looking for potential vehicles that would have been in the area, witnesses. It's a full combination of everything in play all at one time.
Mm. So let's work backwards from the arrest, since that is what detectives do. Phil Ramos, the arrest did happen yesterday, right around 5 p.m. Arkansas State Police and local detectives swarmed a hair salon in a small town in Arkansas, and believe it or not, the woman who was cutting his hair is actually active on X, and she was tweeting out that she was just horrified, didn't know what was happening, but officers enter from both the front and the rear. And COE, there is some video I sent you of this if you're able to pull it up. Right in middle of getting this haircut, which looks like they only took some stuff off the sides there by the looks of the top of his head. They asked if the black sedan parked outside was his, with duct tape that was covering the license plate. He indicates that it is, and then he's arrested without incident. And investigators stay there. They photograph the floor, marking evidence around his hair clippings, and tow his vehicle for forensic analysis. So help break this down, and then I'll have Nina and Dr. Detective Hobson and Dr. Detective Troy Looney do the same thing. But I assume that this is a relatively safe place to try to make the arrest, mid a haircut. Is that factored into the calculus of how you take this guy down?
Well, it depends. We got to do a lot of reading between the lines here, because if they knew where he was at and there was a determination made that now we got to take him down now, it sounds like it's going to be a probable cause arrest versus a warrant of arrest. So once they've made that determination and said we got to take him down now, let's take him where it's going to be safe. They had to have been following him for some time just to see where he was at. You don't just by chance you find out who the suspect is and oh, he's over here getting his haircut. There's a lot that happened before they went into that barbershop and took him into custody, and in the days that'll come out what was revealed to them to make them go to him in the first place, and then how they tracked him down to the barbershop. So there's going to be a lot of people involved that I'm sure, gave information to the cops and maybe had a little bit of intimate knowledge about this guy. And, so far there's been no indication that there was a relationship between he and the victims. But we don't know yet. So, that should come to light. But you're right, man. You look at this guy's picture and there's something evil going on in those eyes, and just the expression on his face, and the frown, and just the way he's staring into that camera. My view is that there's probably going to be some mental health issues coming out of this, but we're just going to have to wait and see. It's so early on. We're going to see what the reports reveal and what they can reveal before they're on the clock now. They got to get a case ready to go to court.
Yeah. Again, these photos are very, very disturbing, I'd say. Dr. Detective Troy Looney, Lindsay Gandy said, how many mugshots does this guy have? Well, if you look at this photo, and maybe I'm completely wrong, and you look at this photo, it almost looks like he's wearing a barbershop cape, as opposed to this photo, which looks like an actual mugshot. I don't know. I know in Tucson, Arizona, where I work, they would actually put on what looked like a bit of a cape, like a silverish covering over the body. And so all the mugshots had a similar look. But I don't know if these are mugshots, or would they be taking photos, Dr. Detective Troy Looney, at the site of the arrest for whatever reason? And that could be these potentially.
Yes, absolutely. Again, you're going to capture the scene in its entirety, including him. This could be interview room. This could have been at the scene. Most likely it's at the station or wherever they secured him. And that previous photo looked like it may have been a license photo even. Again, there's two different looks that he still has in each of those photos. That looks more like a driver's license picture, but not sure, just not knowing. But with the blue background, that's what it says to me. It looks as a little softer look here also.
Yeah.
Still not good, but yeah.
No. And the hair is obviously cut. These are the ones that are particularly disturbing. But Nina, talk to us about the arrest, because this is important. You know, again, they take him down in this hair salon where he's quote unquote getting this fade haircut that you can kind of see, very shaggy on the top. But it's notable his license plate is reportedly covered with duct tape. I mean, that's a giant red flag. I think he was the only one in there, but when they go in, they're questioning him. This is the takedown in the hair. This is the hair salon. And this is video of him with his apron on for the hair. You see, actually, the haircut's much tighter there. So that leads me to believe that the photos those are different than the photos. If you see, you can literally see skin on the side there. But Nina, walk us through this arrest video. They've got him. They're cuffing him. These are undercover. There's the woman that looks like she runs the salon or giving the haircut. But walk us through this arrest. What do you have to do to make sure everything is done properly during a takedown like this?
No, I think we've already discussed that they had intel before this happened. This wasn't just a walk-in, and it's really important that they did it when they did, because had they let him come out of there, get in another vehicle, you know, we have him situated at this point. So let's do it while we can. You can see it's very calmly done. He doesn't resist in any way. The officers obviously are very calm. They know who they're after, and they know what they're after him for. So this is, you know, he's put his gown down there. That obviously, or no, he picked it back up. So that's obviously going to become something that they will take with them. We've already discussed they took pictures of his hair, recovered his hair. You know, they'll be able to get the DNA if they need to. So this is kind of done perfectly, but there definitely was intelligence leading up to this point. And the fact that he has his license plate covered, as we said, that says it all. He's trying to avoid this moment, having his haircut, changing his description. So I agree that there may be some mental health side come out at a later date, but this is also somebody who knows exactly what they're trying to avoid. And to be honest, Joel, every time you put those pictures up, I shudder the fact that he was a teacher.
Yeah. Well, Detective Hobson, yeah, I was going to ask you as a follow-up question. So for those who don't know, Nina literally in her spare time works, you know, to stop sex trafficking crimes and sex crimes. Now, I don't think it has been confirmed, but there's a suspicion that he was after the two young girls. And he has a history, which we're going to get to, of bouncing around schools. I guess I could go in a million different directions. If that is in fact the motive, do we have a problem here in our American school system? I mean, did there need to be better background checks? This guy apparently worked at at least 2 or 3 different other schools, and he's only 28 years old. And then on social media, changed his name slightly from Andrew McGann to Drew McGann. What are your initial thoughts in terms of this possibly being motivated as, you know, as a sex crime against these young girls?
I mean, obviously, we can't make a judgment because we don't like the way he looks or his eyes are wrong or whatever else. But the fact that he is bouncing around schools, he is young to have 3 jobs in 3 different schools, that's a red flag that should be automatically looked at. Now, again, we can't say that everyone who has 3 jobs in the school under the age of 30 is somebody who may be interested in children. But and until we know more about this particular person, there's going to be standard background checks that happen for the school authority. But should there be an issue where we look at the other things that create a pattern, exactly what you've just said, Joel, the fact that we're 3 schools in under the age of 30, we don't know what other things may have come up in that background check. So I'm not criticizing the school system yet, but yeah, let's look at everything together rather than just this is a background check of a person. If anyone has any red flags, then let's pull it up here. But just looking at these pictures to me makes me feel uncomfortable as somebody hiring him in the first place. Again, that's not something that stops a person getting a job. But
yeah,
Yeah. What
Yeah.
else is the motivation also? We don't know any reason for this. And the children are young children, and that potentially could be it. We will see.
Yeah. To you, Detective Ramos, and by the way, I know this is very difficult to do, especially in the middle of a show, but if you guys can silence your notifications, which I don't know how to do myself, to be honest, but if you're able to, that'd be awesome because someone's dinging. But Alicia Elliott here, super chat, Phil, even though he apparently confessed, will they still have a trial? I know the answer to that's going to be yes. Will it just be a sentencing hearing? So now what? He's going to obviously be, I think, be assigned a public defender if he can't afford an attorney, but this in no way means that it's game over for investigators. You said it yourself. This is just starting now. So
Oh yeah.
what? Yeah. So what are the steps now for investigators from today forward?
Well, you just got to keep digging. I mean, you have to prepare for a trial, and you cross your fingers and hope that this guy's going to plead out before the trial starts. But you can't depend on that at all. In fact, you have to expect him. As soon as he gets an attorney, the attorney's going to challenge that confession and want it kicked out. And so you have to work on the angles of that confession. And, I'm looking at this videotape and I'm a little surprised because that looks like a plainclothes criminal apprehension team, these guys. I'm surprised that there aren't uniformed officers there just to back up the fact, hey, these are really cops coming into your shop and going to make an arrest. And in the event that, this guy gets a little squirrely and wants to fight, I'm a little surprised by that. Hopefully they were outside, but
yeah. Well, Phil, is that kind of SOP to have uniformed officers come in with the with the apprehension team here? Would the uniformed officers typically go in?
Yeah, you absolutely want uniform presence there because if you're coming in as a surprise to the people that are working there, they're not going to flash to the badges or the ID cards or anything like that right away. They're just going to see some strangers coming in an aggressive manner to their shop. So that might get them a little freaked out. So that's why you want uniform presence there, just so everybody to know, hey, we're the cops and we're doing some police work here. Everything's fine. Just let us do our thing. But yeah, they have to really dig into the evidence that they were able to come up with, and a lot depends on how they were able to nail him down to where he was at, what he was doing. And I think you made a very good point that the potential target for this guy was probably those little girls. But man, that takes an awful lot of courage, if you want to call it that, to try and attack two little girls with their parents there.
Yeah.
If I was a dad, I'd have gone ballistic.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like the wrath of a parent. Apparently, from what I've read and what I understood, Clinton, who again was a dairy, like a milk delivery guy on the right here, and Cristen, a nurse. Apparently, he began attacking the father who was protecting the kids, and then the mother, I guess, tried to run off with the kids, and then went back to try to protect the husband, and that's when she was attacked as well. So, I mean, both heroes here for potentially, and again, we don't know the absolute motive yet, and police are being tight-lipped. I guess, Dr. Detective Troy Looney, when will police let the public know? I mean, I know everyone wants to know, but we're kind of the least important. But when will the police be able to say, yeah, he was, he told us he was trying to, if this is the case, I'm just saying hypothetically right now, but if he did tell police, yeah, I was interested, I wanted to try to get to these girls, the father got in the way, I didn't know he was a dad, blah, blah, blah. When will we, the public, know that this is the case?
So again, I think that's contingent upon the integrity. They're protecting the integrity of the cases, right? So we may never know publicly until it goes to trial, if that is in fact the case, and or until he's provided counsel. So again, we always share what we can, but you have to vet everything. So there's going to be a deep dive into all the data, forensic data, again, the analytics, the multiple sets of interviews with various people, his background, the family's background, the timeline, everything, again, as I say, in full play. It's just contingent upon when and what they can share. If it's because you have to vet the information coming in, it has to be one way until it's presented in court or protected for the integrity purposes. That's the main thing. You have to protect. We only get one chance to do this right. So integrity is monument. It's very crucial. Can't make those mistakes.
You can see this is a heavily wooded, forested area, Devil's Den State Park, which is well known in this part, I guess, of the Ozarks. Anna Lissette here. I'll listen. There's a lot of conflicting reports out there, and it's very early on. But and COE, I don't know if you can pull up part of that press conference from today. But and the governor spoke, Governor Sarah Huckabee, as well as police, I think separately. But I think the report that the mom took the girls to the car, etc., is an error. They were a mile from the trail entrance, according to reports. The girls ran away and got help from other hikers. So I'm going to get to the interview and sort of the personal nature of the crime in a second, but and I'm going to do that with Detective Hobson. But Phil Ramos, you've been doing this the longest out of everybody. Just back to these photos for a second. I know you can't be prejudicial in the job. I always hear Phil Waters say, you know, I treat everyone the same in the interview room, regardless of race, color, creed. You know, I approach everybody the same. But in your experience over 30 plus years, is there like a look? Is there something, I don't know, like an evil in the eyes that you have noticed over your career?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, people say we develop a fifth sense when we're working cases like this, and as soon as they walk into the interview room and they see this, they know exactly what they're up against. And after the first couple of minutes, you know what his attitude is and the posture that you're going to take. You know, Troy and I have talked about this good guy, good cop, bad cop thing, and everybody has their role in an interview. But in this case, there's no room for a good cop, bad cop. You're going straight at this guy with, you know, no mercy, no quarter at all, and tell us what you're going to tell us because we've got you, and you're going to prison for the rest of your life, if not, you know, the death penalty. So you don't want to introduce that death penalty thing too soon because that'll be defense fodder, and they'll say, well, he only said that because you threatened to kill him, and you know, bull like that. But yeah, you know what you're up against within minutes, and they were. The impression I got just from looking at this guy is that he's going to be a hard ass and try and challenge everything that there is, even though he's given a confession. And how detailed that confession is, we probably won't know until the trial starts. But even in this DMV photo, which we think is a DMV photo, even there he's got a, you know, hard ass look, and you know, just the look in his face, you just want to
yeah,
maintain your composure.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys do it because especially with kids involved and taking kids' parents in front of them, it's hard to do that. But Nina, I was going to ask you something about the interview, but before we get there, I'm sort of struck by the fact that this guy right here is literally, it is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 4 days after he confesses to this crime, and he's in a salon getting a haircut like it's just any other day. From your experience with crime for this many years, I mean, is there any surprise that this guy's life just goes on like nothing ever happened? I mean, I'd be at home trembling. How's this guy just out and about getting a haircut, you know, doing day-to-day things?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're not a double murderer. You know, he's done something that you and me and the rest of the people on this call, you know, that's would never happen. So his mindset is not like a normal person. Whether he's calm now and, you know, it's game up and he realizes and he's happy to confess because he's now a hero, you know, he's also getting attention from the media. He knows that. He's getting attention from the police by giving a confession, which, as we've rightly said, may change. But, you know, his mindset is not like you and me. So his everyday can continue because until we know what the truth is about the motive or anything else about this guy, his life circumstances and his living situation, it could be just another day for him. You know, that's what it could be. And he could have done a million other smaller things that's built up to this moment of him taking the lives of two people. Whether that's because he wanted to have access to the children, I can't say he's a double murderer. He's not been in court and found guilty, but that's really who he is. He's not a normal person.
So with the interview, they get him back to the police station after the, you know, basically 5 p.m. arrest yesterday. This is Arkansas State Police, Mike Hager, who confirmed all of this. And this is a direct quote, Phil Ramos. He says, although everyone is innocent until proven guilty, we did confirm this morning that the suspect's DNA is a positive match to the DNA recovered at the crime scene. And during an interview with investigators, the suspect admitted to committing the murders. Police also executed search warrants at McGann's home. By the way, he just moved here recently from Oklahoma to teach in Arkansas. But search warrants of the home and the car, recovering items consistent with the attack, which he was also said to have been injured. So I don't know if it was bloody clothing, a knife, but right now, at least, this is about as much of a quote unquote slam dunk case or open and shut case as you can get. You got to be feeling pretty good. I mean, if this was your case, Phil Ramos, would you be breathing yet or still holding your breath, gathering as much evidence as you can?
Oh no, yeah, you're still going, and you're still doing the best you can. You can't let your guard down now because of the circumstances look good for you right now, and they do. They look really great for you right now, but you don't know what's going to happen in the next week or the next 2 weeks, or if he changes his mind. You know, we have that happen very often. Yeah, this guy confessed, and he gave us details of the murder that only the killer would know about, and then he's going to recant. Oh, well, I just read that in the paper, and I just wanted some attention, you know, stuff like that. You have to go follow through with this as if you're still looking for someone, because you just don't know what's going to happen, especially once an attorney gets appointed and, you know, they start picking apart your case, and you got to look at, well, what are the weaknesses in our case, and let's bolster them up. But yeah, you keep going. You don't relax just because you've got them in custody. You got DNA, and it looks like a slam dunk right now, which it does look that way. You still have to keep it going.
Look at this comment. Barbie with you with a Y. Barbie with a Y. I get it. It's like reading license plates. These names, I always say that. So many murders in the world. I'm relatively new to the true crime world. I'm shocked, really stunned. I wish I had my innocence back. Yeah.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I think it was John Donne. I was forced to read that in college. He wrote the songs of innocence and the songs of experience, maybe. And innocence is a lot better than experience. Do you think he's done previous crimes? I mean, Dr. Detective Troy Looney, that's a great question. This, from what I've read, is the first known offense from this guy. And to go, you know, I was in Boise last week for the sentencing of BK. That was his first known crime. 4 people stabbed to death. Here you've got 2. Would it surprise you to find out that this is the first violent crime he has committed, Dr. Detective?
No, not at all. No surprises because of his obvious planning with you know, one thing that stood out to me is covering the license plate. That his demeanor, again, there's been other interviews as they're conducting a lot, but talking with previous parents, maybe from a former school he taught at, and they're saying, you know, he was aggressive, very aggressive, maybe even a predator. So that will remains to be seen. But as far as his history, just because he hasn't been caught for something doesn't mean he hasn't done things. So that will hopefully come to light. Maybe that'll be shared later by even him.
And that's a good point. Just because, you know, he hasn't been caught doesn't mean he hasn't committed them. Hard to lock your doors when you're out for a nice hike. That's a pretty good point. Ned Smith with the bun, for sure. Nina, to you, I'm curious. What do you think? I mean, would it be better, Detective Hobson, to have a woman like you in the interview room, who maybe can soften him up a little bit? Because you heard Phil Ramos basically saying he wants to kick this guy's ass already before he walks in the interview room. How do you start this interview process with this particular alleged criminal here?
I mean, I also want to kick his ass and more before we go in the interview room. But, you know, sometimes, and Phil will, you know, agree to this, I'm sure, you know, sometimes the person that's done a crime like this will respond more to a softer side, maybe, because maybe, again, they feel like they're being understood. And sometimes we do, not the bad cop, good cop situation, but I'm more empathetic to what you've done. It doesn't mean for 1 second I am, but sometimes if that's the way that he will respond. And you know, I trained, as I'm sure the guys have, how to interview a pedophile, because going hard on a pedophile, they kind of, you know, put their guard up, because they know that they're the scum of the earth. Sorry about that, but they are. And so they put a guard up. So when we trained to interview them, we are on the softer side of, tell us what you did, because we're not that hard on you, and we don't think you're as bad as we actually think you are. And sometimes it works, but as Phil said, it's you judge that very early on in an interview situation. And sometimes, you know, that's, you bring somebody else in who may have that better effect on them. But I just want to make it real clear that female soft side, and I feel exactly the same as every other person, but sometimes it works. And a good interview team, you know how that works, and you know when to step aside to let your crewmate step in. And because ultimately we just want to solve this case, and we want to get this bad, horrendous person locked away forever. If I mean, you have the firing squads over here, so I think we should get busier on that. That's a personal opinion.
I don't know if there's a death penalty in Arkansas. I think there might be, but if you guys at STS Nation know, let me know. I'm trying to pull up. There's a I'm having a technical glitch here, but there's a New York Post story that is just out, Detective Ramos, and I'm going to pull this up as soon as I can. But essentially, it is interviewing a former school worker, an employee, I believe a principal at a school this guy worked at near Dallas, Texas, in and around Dallas, Texas. He worked in Dallas and I believe Oklahoma. He had moved here from Oklahoma. But this principal or school worker said that he was essentially fired from that job because there was, quote unquote, inappropriate behavior with some of the young female students. So do you go there in the interview if you get that information? Do you ask him about that if you get that information?
Yeah, you have to do it very carefully, though. But first, let me reach out to Nina. That she's 100% spot on. Absolutely 100%. I mean, she nailed it right there. Sometimes the presence of a female detective or female officer has a calming effect on everybody in the room. But she's also your ace in the hole, because the bad guys will gravitate towards a female officer more than they will towards a male officer, and that's when you start setting the trap for them. So I would have loved to have had a partner with the qualities that Nina has. So
Phil, let me jump in for 1 sec, because I was able to pull this up now. So this guy McGann previously taught, and this is according to this New York Post article on this, taught at the Donald Elementary School near Dallas, Texas, where he resigned from in 2023 after allegations of alarming behavior toward young girls in class. Here's a quote: "My son and several students witnessed Mr. McGann being inappropriate with little girls in the class and reported it to the principal at the time," wrote Sierra Markham. This is on Facebook, claiming to be the mother of one of McGann's former students. Mr. McGann was allowed to resign without consequence, and statement was put out saying there was no evidence of inappropriate behavior. He was then allowed to continue teaching in other districts in Oklahoma and Arkansas. So this is coming from a parent from a Facebook post, reportedly after he was let go by the school district, saying that there was no actual inappropriate behavior. But again, in the course of your investigation, do you now need to reach out to this principal and start asking questions?
absolutely, and shame on that district for letting him slide on that. Had that been made public, this guy would never have been allowed to go to get a job again. And there's where the problem lies, because of and I'm not taking side. I love teachers. I think they have the hardest job in the world, and we do our best to support them. But the teachers' unions will protect an individual like that so that they can get another job in another jurisdiction across the country, when this person has no business trying to be a teacher, especially with that kind of documentation. And if they were able to say there's been inappropriate, so they go on the record and saying, well, there was no indication of inappropriate behavior. That's an agreement that they came up with to, like a plea bargain situation. But that should never have happened. In my view, that should never have happened, because look at the result.
Yeah. And Dr. Hobson, Dr. Detective Troy Looney, I know you guys both have your own children, but Nina, to you, it goes on here. It says, this is a quote from the district in outside of Dallas. The district investigated complaints of poor classroom management and poor professional judgment related to concerns and uneven treatment of students and displays of favoritism, read the email shared with the Daily Post by the Louisville Independent School District. It goes on. It says, our investigation did not find any evidence of inappropriate behavior with a student. However, we did find his classroom management and professional judgment to be below our district's expectations. McGann was hired the next school year to teach 5th grade at Spring Creek Elementary in Oklahoma. They said he had a thorough background check. The quote from them is, as with all district employees, McGann underwent and passed all legally required national background checks. He left Spring Creek Elementary at the end of the 2023-24 school year for employment elsewhere. I mean, there are red flags, but, you know, it appears that, you know, he didn't carry out, and it sounds like he was favoring, you know, some of the girls over some of the other students. Do you agree with Detective Ramos? Should more have been done by the school district outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we spoke at the start about backgrounds, and yeah, and it's said there you can pass the legal background, but here we have a document where we talk about favoritism. That in the school world, in teachers' world, is that really grooming? The start of grooming? These are young children, and we use a word, however. However, his manner was not right in the classroom. So, however, is he ever back in a classroom? I mean, that's the top and bottom of it. All of this should be disclosed. He should never been engaged as a teacher again. And looking at that, shame on everybody that's involved, because we now have 2 young children who have witnessed their parents being murdered. And could that have been stopped? May he have done it again? But that's not the point. He should not be around children. There's clearly something going on.
And apparently there was a 3rd child. I've heard that who didn't go along for the trip. But now these kids are. I mean, it's just beyond devastating. I mean, they're orphan kids. One thing you should know about the COE, she knows how to box. She's got Latin in her blood. They're some of the best boxers in the world. And I can guarantee you, this guy, it's like the line that Kaylee Gonzalez's sister delivered. I can guarantee you this guy would have not, he would have been in bad shape if the COE got to him, and she would have gone down with a fight. I may have gone running out of the forest screaming like a little girl, but not the COE. So I would have fought for my kids, that's for sure. So Dr. Detective Troy Looney, to you, you're in the interview room with this guy, and the impulse is you want to basically kill him. I mean, that's the impulse, but you guys are professionals. So how do you start this interview off? Hey, Andrew, I'm Dr. Detective Troy Looney. Nice to meet you. So tell me what you were doing on Saturday. How do you start it?
So, you know, where I'd start, obviously there would be most likely 2 of us in the room as well. And as Nina and Phil said, again, sometimes the person gravitates to who they're more comfortable with. But I'd probably start with building a rapport like I do all my interviews and say, hey, Mr. McGann, you know, introduce myself. Let's just have a discussion, get the information, read Miranda, obviously, and all those required things. If he agrees to talk, and then we just have a conversation about we're here for some, you know, reasons and so forth. So I'd build a rapport also with him because he's a teacher. I'm a teacher at the university level, but I'd build that rapport with, hey, so how long you been teaching, right? So tell me about your previous experience, and then we'd build or lead up to his job, because he hadn't started the job, is my understanding. He was recently hired, but had not yet started his new teaching job in this location. So we'd have maybe build that rapport, kind of soften some of the discussion, and get more into, what has been going on with his life. How does he feel anxiety, things of that nature? Is he on medication? Things of that nature. So again, there's a lot of different ways we would just have a conversation with them.
And then when do you know? I mean, I'm sure it's just experience from doing it for so long, but like when do you know to pivot into the sort of the details of the crime? So so where were you Saturday? Did you see?
Right.
How do you know when to make that turn?
Right. So for me, so we would basically get into timeline, right? So that talks about, well, what'd you do Saturday and Friday, Saturday? And then we get into, were you in the park or did you visit? Is this your vehicle and things of that nature? And then we get more specific as time progresses. And obviously, based on what he says or his responses, if he feels comfortable, then we just continue and then confront him, obviously, with, what took place in a tactical way. And I'm sure Nina and Phil could speak to that also.
Yeah. So Phil, this is an interesting from Cat's Pajamas. Why so many lately? I mean, it's a broad generalization because there's obviously a lot of people committing crimes who are not of this age, but it appears that there are also a lot who are. Why so many lately around the ages of 27, 28, like BK, the New York shooter this past week, this guy? Is that age a pattern or coincidence? I mean, Phil Ramos, I know that mental health issues in men comes up in early mid 20s sometimes, but any theories as to why some of these notorious killers as of late, and this guy confessed, he hasn't been convicted, but why some of these killers are around that age range, Phil?
No, I don't think that there's any association with the age group. I think the association be with the motive and what drove this person and their background, whether they have mental health issues or not. In this particular case, I think the age is just a coincidence, but there are going to be some common elements to his crime once they start digging into his background and his mental health, and the associations have, and just like you mentioned, that investigation from a prior school district already showed some dangerous predatory behavior on this guy's part. So we see that so often when crimes like this occur, and either they're not reported or they are prohibited from being reported. And that just irritates me to no end that kind of history was known, that kind of behavior was known, and he was still allowed to be a teacher. It just blows me away.
This is also a true comment. There was a guy in Traverse City, Michigan, stabbing 11 people at a Walmart last week. We live in such a violent country. It's bordering on obscene. But Detective Hobson, to you, just to recap a little of what happened Saturday, the Brink family, they were hiking with two of their daughters at this place, Devil's Den State Park. Investigators now say that they believe that Clinton Brink, the father, was attacked first, and Cristen, a registered nurse, tried to lead her daughters away to safety, but then returned to help her husband, where she was also fatally stabbed. So she is definitely, without a doubt, a heroine here, going back, trying to, saving the kids and trying to go back to save the father. The children, police said, were found physically unharmed, but emotionally traumatized, and their eyewitness account, along with a park goer's description of a vehicle, launched the 5-day manhunt. Police say that McGann sustained injuries during the attack, and his blood helped link him to the crime. So it is amazing police work. In 5 days, they caught up to this guy and knew exactly where he was, what he was up to, and get him while he's getting a haircut. But as it pertains to the children, this is something that you were trained in. I believe they're 7 and 9, if I'm right. I'm getting the chills because these kids are so young. And again, they're orphaned now. But Nina, how do you start an interview with these kids, and have they both been interviewed fully already?
The interview process will continue, and it's really important that the kids aren't just, and they would never be, because the interviewers are trained, but they are crucial to the investigation, and everything has to be done at their speed, because these young children are so traumatized at this point, having witnessed that, and then they go through a whole process that is so alien to them. And it's the job of a good interviewer with the children to bring out the information that the detectives who are investigating the case need. So you're working very closely together. You have a team with the bad guy, so to speak, and then we have a team with the children in this case, who are working closely. But it's led at the children's pace, and it's all about, we starting with the report. So we could interview and be with a child for hours and not get anything about the case, because that's what the child needs. At that point, as a detective, we very much go with it's sometimes we're torn, because we want to be solving that crime and we want to be giving the information, and we know that these children have that information. But the important part of being a trained child interviewer is to not push for that, to not say we want this because the detectives need it. And so you can sit for days with the children before you can get the information.
What about things like drawing? Does that help? Is that something that you encourage?
Yeah, we do encourage drawing, and because these are young children, so they don't know how to articulate everything that they've seen necessarily. Obviously, I haven't spoken to these children, but yeah, they can draw. And at the same time, we obviously encourage them to explain what they're drawing. The really important thing evidentially is that we're not putting words into their mouths or making any suggestions. So we don't lead them into saying anything that we know about the case, because obviously we know about the case, we know what he said at certain times, but it's really important that that does not happen. And you do get frustrated at times that you've been there for such a long time, but it's key that the children feel comfortable. It's alien to them, so they will still be interviewed right now. That will go
Nina,
on.
This is horrible. From Angie Mortz here, and I would say best guess, better community. That 911 operator said that the one girl said she ran until she couldn't hear her mom. I mean, this is as bad as it gets. Ran until she could not hear her mom screaming anymore. I don't know. Listen, I talked about this earlier. There was a horrible boating accident in Miami involving 3 kids. 2 are no longer with us. One is basically brain dead, and my daughters go to that little camp. They were supposed to be on those boats that day, but they were too tired and they didn't go to camp on Monday, so they thankfully were not there. But it wasn't the same situation for the other families that are suffering, and the COE and I both a bit of a mess this week. But these girls, my 9-year-old daughter, so one of the girls from this boating accident is on life support. She's not coming back to school, but my daughter said to my wife, what do I say to her when she gets back to school? So obviously these are the most innocent kids. They don't understand. How do you question someone like that? I mean, how do you like, with a comment like this, where she said she just was running because she didn't want to hear her mom scream? Do you have to ask her, hey, the operator told me that you heard your mommy screaming. Tell me more. How do you approach it?
Exactly like you just did, Joel. It's like you having a conversation, as long as that information has already come out and you have to question them. And it's very traumatic. And that's why you sit for a very long time building the rapport. The children have to feel comfortable. We don't even know if these children were actually talking in the interview. Children often shut down. We've got a case going on, and in particular, a case like this where we've acted really quick. The police have been so impressive. They've got the guy. They've obviously had some intel, had him under surveillance. We don't know whether these children have just sat there and said nothing at this point. And that is also possible. And so you have to go with the children. And it may be that we've had cases before the children never speak. And that they have information you need. But it's just building that rapport and going at their space and understanding what their needs are, as opposed to what our needs are as detectives.
Yeah, well, he didn't just murder the parents; he effectively just killed these 2 girls and the other children as well. Phil Ramos, man, sometimes I just can't get over human beings. Dogs are a whole lot better. No offense to everybody out there, but rather be hanging out with dogs any day of the week. No offense. So Phil, just to go through a little bit of a timeline here as it relates to his teaching history. Andrew McGann, he was a teacher who moved from district to district, state to state. He taught 4th grade at Donald Elementary. That's where the mom posted on Facebook that she saw odd behavior of him favoring other people. That's in Louisville, Texas in 2023. 2024, he bumps up a grade to 5th grade, and he's now at Spring Creek Elementary in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Then the next year, this year, he was supposed to start teaching at Bayari Elementary in, or maybe he was teaching already this year in Bayari Elementary in Springdale, Arkansas. But he was introduced by a slightly different name, Drew, instead of Andrew. Not so. It's 3 school districts, 3 states, in 3 different years. You addressed it earlier, but what can be done by the schools here or the school districts nationwide to make sure a guy like this isn't able to jump? I mean, and I'm sure it's happening with other people we don't know of right now, jump from district to district, state to state.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? How this guy moved from school to school to school for whatever reason. It sounds like, well, my wife is in the Air Force and she was transferred all these different places, so I had to go there. Nothing like that sounds like would apply to this guy. So, I mean, there's red flags already. Just the fact that he had been in so many different schools in such a short period of time. So what was the reasoning? So you go to the reasoning, and that's where the confidentiality clauses come into play. You can get information from parents. Well, my son went to Johnson Elementary School, and this teacher was known to do this, do this, do this. So while you're doing your background on the teacher, you call that district and say, hey, what can you tell us about this? Sorry, but we can't tell you anything. So you can't go by what the parent, you can't use the information from the parents as conclusive because you can't corroborate it. We have to corroborate everything we're told, everything that we see. Everything has to be, just can't take somebody's word for this person did this. You have to be able to corroborate it. That's one of the burdens that we have, the burden of proof. So that's a tough call, man. Where do you draw the line between a teacher's privacy and the public safety? It's a fine line that we have to walk.
It's a slippery slope, but sometimes in this country, I think we're too, I don't know, maybe politically correct, whatever the phrase is.
Absolutely.
I think you have to put the safety of the kids before everything else. But
right.
Dr. Detective, so he didn't shoot these people. It was a knife. I mean, he stabbed 2 people, murders them. I don't know, to you, just off from what you know, I mean, we don't know. It appears to be a random attack, but knives, they say, are very personal. So what do you make of the fact that a knife or knives, I don't know that it was multiple, but at least a knife was used in this attack? What does it tell you with your experience?
That is very right on point with saying it's personal. It's more of a silent weapon. So the element of surprise or attack may be favored or may have been favored by him. I do understand that he was supposedly injured. I'm curious how he was injured and where he was injured. I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere near the hand area, or maybe he cut himself, or during the struggle, he was cut in trying to stab them. So I'm curious, and if he had an injury, that would come into play with the interview also. Hey, tell me how you hit your hand, or how'd that happen? When did you do this? So that kind of leads into the confrontation. But yeah, the fact that there's a knife, I'm sure there was mention of search warrants of the home, the vehicle, knives were seized in that. They're going to test them for comparison, maybe to make match of any kind of blood transfer or whatever the case is, or DNA or both. So again, that's an edged weapon, I guess as it's also called. Very, very personal in any assault when it's used in that capacity.
Yeah. And Detective Hobson, what about sort of the timeline and location? I mean, you have to wonder. We had a case, Rachel Morin, who was murdered on a hiking trail while jogging. She was hit with blunt force trauma, basically a cement block that was used to kill her. But in this case, again, it's a knife. But how do you figure out here if this was a case of he's stalking either the parents and or the girls, or it was just a crime of opportunity? I mean, it could be something as simple as the father bumped into this guy, maybe on the hiking trail, and they had words, and he just starts stabbing them. It could be that he, found these young girls, appealing and was interested and there's a million different ways it could go. So how do you get this information from him? Do you think they already have that information?
I think obviously they're reliant to get information out of him. He's being cooperative if he's made a confession, but I think it's going back to what we said right at the start. You have to start at the start of where this happened and follow it through, or go backwards, because we don't know whether his background, his associates, his behaviors, his social media, there's so many things that could lead us as detectives into what the motive is. And right now, we don't know what that is. And it could be that he is a predator. Everything to me is smacking with, he's moving state, he's trying to be around children, he's favored females in a classroom. Everything is saying that this guy is a predator, and maybe that's what he saw. Maybe he was hiking and he saw somebody with 2 young children and thought, I will take them. And maybe that was the case. And I think, mom came back because she saw her husband was injured, and she's a nurse, and she tried to make that better. And time will tell what the motive is, whether it's from his confession, whether it's from the work that the detectives will continue to do for a very long time.
Yeah. And Nina, is this the kind of thing where you do the interview, you may have forgotten something and you're back at home that night, and it's kind of like gnawing at you, like I should have either asked this or I should have phrased it this way? And then, do you get a second bite at the apple the next day if that happens?
Yeah, you do feel that. Obviously we're human beings, and then you always do something and go, I should have, I could have. Again, it depends on the situation with the children. At some point the interviews will stop, but a lot of the time you are able to go back and ask that question in the right way. And we also work in teams of 2, so we often don't, and sometimes 3, but we often just have one person in the room, and then we have a detective who is viewing the interview as it happens, and will give us notes or have an earpiece and say, hey, why don't you ask this in this way? But they won't come in and do that because you have the rapport with the children. So it gives us a second set of eyes, because it's quite intense, as you can imagine. When you're in there, you know what the end result is, but you can't push to get that end result. And when we start every interview, we always determine whether the children know the difference between the truth and a lie. And that is the start of an interview. So again, for evidential reasons, bearing in mind that's what we're also doing this for, is to get somebody locked away. If we can prove, we don't want the defense to come back and say, well, that was all made up, they didn't know the difference. So that's one of the key things that we do when we interview. And then we have somebody who can help us in the same way that the detectives in the room can stop the interview and go and have a conversation. We can do the same. We have breaks with the children.
Someone just said, and I saw this on social media, that apparently he was on a dating app, and someone made the comment, imagine swiping right. The photo is not much different than this photo. So it's a bit of a disturbing picture, and that's a whole other
that's another show, the dating app issues.
Yeah,
For sure.
That's a whole other show. Yeah, exactly. But Phil Ramos, to you, and just a couple more questions, and we'll get final thoughts. In your career, again, for someone that did this in homicide, well over 15 and 30 plus total, how unusual is it to get a confession like this from a person who commits an act of violence like this?
It used to be very unusual, but of late, you see this more often than you would expect. I think in my career, I only got maybe 10, 15 confessions right out of the gate. But I think that lends towards his mental health issues, is that he just gave it all up right away as soon as he was confronted by the cops. So one would think that, hey, I just killed two people and I have my own reasons. I'm not saying anything to anybody. You would think that would be the case. Um, but it seems like it's a little more frequent these days, and maybe that's why we've got a rise in these kinds of incidents. I don't think there's too many of these types of incidents where either the suspect was apprehended, committed suicide, or was on the run, but not for very long. Look at Kroberger. You know, they knew right away where he was, and he never gave it up until, well, he never did give it up. But there's just, I don't know, man. Maybe it's something in the water, as they say.
Yeah. Dr. Detective, what's this from Abby? Abby, a friend of the show, friend of ours. Having DNA contributes to more. What about that, Dr. Detective Troy Looney? It's a different world. Like Phil was saying, the beginning of his career, DNA is much different than it is today, as it was for you, Dr. Detective Troy Looney, even though you look 28 years old. Perhaps having DNA digital forensics, do you think that it contributes to more confessions, because these guys know that they're dead to rights, that hey, they've got my DNA, they've got my blood, I'm just going to tell you what happened?
Yes, absolutely. Again, excellent question, by the way. I was thinking along those lines before the question was asked. So excellent question. Yes, it does contribute, and a couple other things contribute also. So, DNA, we know, like with the CSI effect, essentially, DNA and digital forensics have become synonymous, right? It's become self-authenticating, as they call it in the field, whereas it's just as definitive as DNA, like blood evidence, fingerprint. It's becoming just as standardized because of the education, because of social media, because of TV shows and everything, and because of the casework, right? So we know that we can definitively say this person or this person with their device was at this location in this area of the tower. This DNA matches. So it all works as circumstantial evidence to paint the full picture of what they were doing, where they were, who it is, because of who the subscriber is on that device. That's their DNA, even the DNA on the phone, on the knife, or whatever the case is, right? So it works as a collaborative. And I want to add to that with social media. We're seeing a trend. Someone mentioned like the certain age range. We're seeing a trend with just how people socialize, right? You can be in one particular social setting at a restaurant. You look around, everybody's on their phone, right? So the reason I mention that is young adults and even older adults, everyone communicates differently. So not saying this guy's socially awkward, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's got some kind of manifesto somewhere, some kind of writing. I mean, he obviously is degreed, so he has the credibility and credentials to teach. What kind of writings? I mean, it's going to be a deep dive with psychology and to look at his past and what he's posted and what he shared and everything. So yeah, excellent question, by the way.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'm sure they're going to look for that. Detective Hobson, to you, I mean, what's your gut tell you here? Do you think this was a random act of violence? You think it was premeditated? Does your gut tell you that he saw something in those girls? And I mean, that's even crazier to think that you're going to be able to, potentially abduct two girls from their parents in the middle of the woods. I mean, there's nothing like scorned parents. So what's your gut tell you here about the situation? I know it's speculation, but what is it your gut tell you?
I mean, my gut's saying this guy's a predator, and, this would have potentially happened. If it didn't happen this week, it may have happened in next year. But with regards to him going on that hike to grab two children, again, we don't know his mindset at that moment. It is possible that that's what he wanted to do. He may have followed them there. We don't know enough about the case, but is this guy, in my gut and my experience, a sexual predator? Absolutely. And should he have been stopped before this week? Absolutely. But yeah, we'll see what the case is, but yeah, he's not a good person. That is for sure.
And by the way, this is a good point from Allie here. Can we not blame mental illness on this for a change? It's really frustrating that it has become the catch-all reason these days. The stigma only continues for those who do have a legit issue. And listen, so many people have, however you want to define mental health issues, but a lot of people are dealing with a lot of things, and the vast majority of people don't go around killing people. So that's a very good point. There's something else going on with this guy, and I appreciate Ali bringing that to the forefront. Phil Ramos, a final question, then we'll get final thoughts. This guy confesses, right? And then you're going to have a defense attorney who's eventually going to come in and say, Phil Ramos grabbed him by the collar and, sat him down, and he was scared to death. And so he said he did something he didn't. How frustrating is that for you? And how do you protect yourself from these criminal defense attorneys who are very necessary in our society? I have a lot of criminal defense attorney guests, but how do you defend yourself against criminal defense attorneys?
Well, that's why you videotape and audio tape every interview, from beginning till the end, to defend yourself against ludicrous accusations like that. And that defense attorneys are going to try and come up with any evidence of bad behavior on the cops. We have a saying, when the defense attorneys, when they can't attack the evidence, they attack the evidence collectors. So they're going to come after you one way or another. Sometimes you laugh at them, and sometimes you just shake your head. But that's why our interviews are videotaped and audio taped.
I'd like to see Ramos cross paths with one of these guys in the hallway. It'd be fun to watch. But for those who do not know, now you know. Dr. Detective Troy Looney, he's got a show on STS Talk, the other channel that we have. And this is just a horrific crime. These parents out and about, they are literally hiking with their kids when this guy comes upon them and stabs both Clinton and Cristen Brink, killing both of them and leaving the kids, the daughters, and there's more than two. There was two who were with them, but now leaving these young girls orphaned because of this guy who confessed to the crimes and the DNA match. So right now, the evidence looking really, really strong for the police, and the facts for this guy looking really, really bad. Again, I'm not sure if Arkansas has the death penalty. If someone in STS Nation wants to let us know, please do. Dr. Detective Troy Looney is still an active detective in Akron, Ohio, and he worked homicides. He's done it all, financial crimes, you name it. But Dr. Detective Troy Looney, if you're working this case right now, what's your next move? What are you doing?
So again, after the initial interview, we're going through the search warrant evidence, what was found, what needs to be sent off for testing, what needs to be reviewed, who do we need to talk to. I'm making a to-do list, essentially, of what I can delegate and what I can follow up on, or what we can follow up on, because it's a collective. And this is just the beginning, like Phil and Nina said, really just the beginning of the investigation. Apprehension is one thing. Now putting the case together and deep dive into everything. So again, his previous history, even the timeline of the victims, and where they followed, right? So again, that him being a potential predator is definitely that's going to be looked at closely. And I'm really going to go back to maybe his previous teaching location, actually go there if we can, or if that's funded by the department. So or send someone. So maybe even just talk with previous investigators that may have had some dealings, his neighbors, right? So it's really a deep dive into everything. It's going to be interesting what they uncover as they put things together, because the investigators are still trying to understand why. And one more point, I'm sorry. Yeah. Someone mentioned the mental health. It's not necessarily that we're trying to blame the mental health aspect. We're just trying to see what kind of culpable mental state, and the reason why. The why is the biggest thing. Why he did this. We want to understand, is he even going to be competent to stand trial? So you have to see what, just because he says one thing or gives a statement, as Phil said, doesn't mean he's going to stick to that, or he could change his mind. But he could have some other mental health, or even be under doctor's care with medication. So that does factor in with how they proceed forward.
Yeah. Unfortunately for this guy, and maybe fortunately for the parents who are no longer with us, Arkansas does have the death penalty. There's approximately 20 people on death row, and very soon there might be another one added to the pile. For those who do not know, Detective Nina Hobson is a living, breathing badass of a woman. She was a homicide detective in the UK, and literally in her free time now works against human sex trafficking, and is very passionate about sex crimes specifically, and crime in general. What about, Nina? I mean, your final thoughts, but what about these kids? What happens with them now? The parents are gone. Have the police, I mean, I'm sure they've contacted next of kin. Are they going to go live with family somewhere else, or does the state take them into custody for a while? What happens?
No, I mean, if we can, we'll put them obviously with family. That's where they should be. They've just lost their mom and dad. So that's the most important thing, is that they're in a secure and safe environment. They will still obviously be spoken to by the police for a very long time and be part of this investigation, sadly. But they need to be where they feel loved and where they're familiar. And they are, right now, they are the most important thing in this case. And yes, we all want to get this guy. If he's found guilty, I'm happy to go and be the firing squad. That, I'm down for that. Also down for working with Phil. We really need to do an investigation together.
Yeah.
But yeah, these kids are the most important thing, and surround them with as much love as they can, because they have their whole world has ended, and they have a very, very tough road ahead.
I smell a reality show with these three guests solving cold cases. I can see the open already. Paige Hargis here. It's very hot right now in Arkansas, and humid as you know what. He was wearing all black long sleeves, gloves, backpack, a hat. I did not know that that's what he was wearing. I mean, he was hunting. If you don't know Phil Ramos, he is the man. He infiltrated the Cuban mob. This guy carried $1 million in cash through a casino, which is about as crazy as it gets, and spent the last 15 or so years as a homicide detective. The guy still rides his Harley, even though I think his wife yells at him, or at least my mother would. Phil Ramos, your final thoughts. I mean, if this is true, that he's wearing all black, long sleeves, gloves, backpack, a hat in 100-degree weather, basically in the hot summer heat of the Ozarks, that does indicate probably that he was hunting. I mean, what do you do with that, and your final thoughts about where this heads from here?
Yeah, that's absolutely state of mind evidence right there. I mean, who does that? If someone's not up to some kind of nefarious activity, you don't dress like that. So that's a minor point down the way. I mean, you certainly don't focus on that, but we've noticed that in cases like this, that there does seem to be some commonality with that type of attire, and I don't get it. I've never got into it or talked to anybody about it, but you see kids out here in Vegas, we hit 115, 117 degrees, and you see kids walking around with hoodies and the hood on, and I'm thinking, the hell's the matter with you, man? It's almost 120 and you got a hoodie on.
Yeah, by the way, I didn't realize this is the photo from that day, apparently. So this is what he was wearing. Yeah, and he it looks like he could be trying to conceal himself there. Boots, long black pants, long sleeves. I mean, Phil,
So,
are you asking him about this in the interview?
yeah, do we know where that image came from? Was it a security camera, or was that just a passerby?
Great question. I don't know the answer. STS, if you do, it'll pop up. He looks physically fit too, which I guess is It's funny because Jody Arrington just said he looks like a smaller frame man. He's got a pretty thick neck to me. It looks like he's in the video here. Let's just play this real quick. If it'll pop up, he doesn't look tiny. He doesn't look like he's 6'4" or anything. But next to this guy, he's, he looks like a average build, but pretty fit. But yeah, what about that particular photo? I don't know, to be honest, if it's where this is coming from. My guess is possibly his social media profile. I don't know.
That could be if it was taken at this park, then that tells me that there was some surveillance cameras there, and that very well could be how the cops got their leads on him.
Yeah. Someone said maybe a passerby. Someone's also saying this guy may have played rugby in high school, which just goes to show, that's a rough sport. Requires
It is.
a lot of. I mean, Phil, what about stabbing and killing two people? I mean, this came up a lot with the University of Idaho.
Yeah.
4 people, and BK did that in a matter of 13 minutes. I mean, that's and I don't say this lightheartedly. That's a lot of energy and that's a lot of adrenaline flowing through you to be able to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of rage, a lot of hatred coming through, not necessarily for the victim, but the killer gets so worked up and into a frenzy that he can't stop himself from just stab and stab and stab and stab it. We see that pretty often. There's not very many murders occur with 1 or 2 stab wounds. I mean, I've seen bodies that have 100+ stab wounds, and a lot of them aren't fatal. So until you start getting to those vital organs, the in the midsection of your body, lungs, heart, kidneys, liver, stomach, until you start hitting those, it could be a long, drawn out, bleeding out, miserable death for someone.
Well, on that lovely note, I'll say this. A lot of people give not only criminal defense attorneys, but a lot of people like to scapegoat police and give them a bad name. Try doing what Phil Ramos, Nina Hobson, and Troy Looney did for a living. I bet you might not last too long, because you're the ones that have to show up on scene and see these people who are stabbed 100+ times. These guys are all, and women are all heroes. They all respond to these scenes, and these law enforcement officers are the ones that caught this guy in 4 or 5 days' time, and this guy is now confessed. And we're going to stay on this case. We're going to bring you some updates tomorrow on Brian Koberger. Yours truly may take a day off tomorrow. Been a little heavy with the true crime lately, and sometimes got to let the mind breathe. So I encourage everybody to do that. Hope everyone is well. We're going to be back next week with a full slate of shows, and then we're getting ready for Donna Adelson's trial up in Tallahassee. I had a chance to speak to Ruth Markell today, who's doing very well. She sounded in good spirits, and I left a quick message for Phil Markell, who was on the golf course. So that's his therapy, and they're going to have a tough time as this trial nears. So everyone, be kind. Don't kill anyone. Guests, stick around for 1 second. Love you, America. Love you, Vegas. Love you, Akron. Love you, Los Angeles, the UK, and everywhere near and far between.